right, welcome to part 3 of lesson 1.4. So we're going to go and take a look at example 3 here, which is this equation. So we have 2x minus 7 equals 3 plus 5x plus 8. And so for this one, you go ahead and build your tiles for it. And so if you're able to borrow some tiles to take home, I would do that now. So you can pause it, build it, and then I'll show you what the tiles I set up look like. All right, so hopefully you have that set up. This is what this equation looks like using the tiles. And so we have our 2x's, our 7 negatives, then our 3 positives, our 5 positive x's, and our positive 8's. Oh, let me scoot that over so you can see the 8's. There we go. All right. And then our first step is still flipping. And the goal is we want all the squares on one side and all the rectangles on the other. So to me it makes sense to flip these rectangles over here. So I'm going to scoot these over just a little bit, give myself some room. And I'm going to take all 5 of these and I'm going to flip them over so they're over on this side. There we go. So there they are, they're negative. I'll move them up here as soon as I get these other ones taken care of. Now these should flip on this side. And now the order you put them in doesn't really matter. Usually what I tend to do is I'll have the 3 and then these 8 are here, so I'll just scoot those over. And then I'll usually flip them after. So these will flip over to this side. There we go. And so these 7 negatives now become 7 positives. These positive 5x's flip, and they're now negative 5x. And so this is what we have. Now I'll write that down. We still have our 2x's. These are negative, so it's minus 5x. And so then we have our 3. We have our 8. And then these 7, we need a plus in front of it. Now I want to point out I didn't need a plus in front of the 3 because there's an equal sign in front of it. So there's nothing in between. But between each of these terms, I either need a plus or a minus whenever you're doing flipping. So if you flip something and it's positive, you're going to have to put a plus in front of it if there's another number here. And the same thing here. When I flip this, this should be a negative 5x. Now I could have done this a little bit differently. What if I flip these in front here? Then I could have written, I'm just going to write another option over here. Let me move this down here real quick. I could have done negative 5x plus 2x. And I could have done, like, put the 7 in the front. So this would be a valid problem as well. Please note, this 5x is negative here and here. This 2x is still positive here and here. So you can switch the orders. But you need to make sure that the sign that is in front of the term is consistent. When you switch them, sometimes I'll see people switch them. They'll leave the negative here, and then they'll get like a 5x minus 2x. That's wrong. This is positive. It never flipped to the other side. It should stay positive regardless of the order you put it in. Whatever flipped, that's the one that has to have a negative in front of it. So do be careful with that. All right, so here's our flipped tiles. Our next step is combining alliances and wars. On this side, what do we have? Well, that's a war, right? Who's going to win the war? Well, there's clearly more negatives than positives. And if they fight, how many negatives are going to be left? Well, 2 of these take out 2 of those, right? So we pull them off, and we can see that there are 3 negative x's left over. Now on this side, these are all positives. So this is an alliance. It's 3 different groups of positives that all going to combine together to make one group of positives. I'm going to move this over here. Yeah, we'll do that. Put these over here. And I like putting them into like a little rectangle shape because then it's a little easier to figure out what you have. You have 3 rows and 6 columns. That's a total of 18. So there's 18 positives there. Okay, now what? We did our combining. We fought the war over here. We did the alliance of positives over here. Now what? Well, our last step is division. So we can take these x's and divide them into 3 groups. However many x's there are, that's how many groups you're going to divide them. So you got to divide these equally among the three groups. So I'll take the group up here. The whole thing's sliding. There we go. Take this group down here, and that'll be my middle group. So we can see that each group has 6 in it. Now here's where the issue is. The tiles over here are still red. It says negative x is equal to 6. That's what this is saying. Each negative x is equal to 6. So I actually think at this point the tiles are a little bit harder than the actual paperwork. Let's go and do the paperwork here, and then we'll come back to the tiles. So what am I supposed to divide by? I know I'm separating them into 3 groups, but what we talked about when we wrote down about the division step is you divide by whatever is in front of x. Negative 3 is in front of x, not just 3, but negative 3. So you would put negative 3x divided by negative 3, and then 18 is also divided by negative 3. Negative 3 divided by negative 3 is positive 1. Remember, a negative divided by a negative is positive because negatives cancel in pairs. 18 divided by 3, well, that's 6, and it is going to be negative. So x equals negative 6 is the correct answer. So how do I make my tiles reflect that? Well, since these are red, I could easily flip these over so they're blue and flip these over. Right? So whenever we flip, we turn them over. Now I have x is equal to negative 6, and I can do the same thing with the other 2 groups, and we can see that each x does equal negative 6. And there we go. X equals negative 6. Now, another way we could have done this with the tiles, we did not have to flip the way we did. So I'm going to put the 2x here. Let's put in our negative 7 here. And then we'll put in our positive 3. 1, 2, 3. And then we had 5 x's here. Right? And then we had 8 over here. So that was our original setup. And so you don't have to always flip these to that side. So what I could have chosen to do is take these 2 x's and flip them over here, and take all of these and flip them to the other side. There's my 3, and then my 8 flips over to a negative 8. I'll put it right there so we can see all the groups. So then we would have a war over here, and when we fought this war, 2 positives and 2 negatives take each other out. Now you have a positive 3x, and now you have an alliance of negatives. You'd have 18 negatives here. And then you could divide each side by 3, and then you would then show that each x is equal to 6. So you could easily choose to do that on the other side. You don't always have to flip the x's to this side. You could, so you just decide which one you think is easier. If you want to avoid the negative, you could flip them so that the x's wind up being positive. Or if you flip it over and it's a negative, it's not a big deal because you just divide both sides by that negative. So when you're doing it actually on paper and not using the tiles, I think it's easier just flip it to that side. Always get it to the left. Just know if you have a negative in front, you're going to have to divide by a negative and follow the rules for that. All right. I'm not gonna redraw the tiles for this one. I do want to talk about the checking on this one. So pull the calculator here, and we'll go ahead and put our 2x. Yep. In this case, we said x was negative 6, right? So 2 times negative 6 minus 7. Oops. I knocked all my tiles. Minus 7. We hit enter. We get negative 19. And then we can do the same thing here. So 3 plus 5 parenthesis negative 6, because that was our answer, plugged in for x, plus 8, negative 19. So once again, you can confirm your answers by plugging them back in, whether you do it by hand or on a calculator. And then you can know whether you got it right or not. And if these don't match, then you got to go back and check your work to see, why didn't it match? What was the issue there? All right, so that ends video 3, or part 3. And so we're going to cover the last part, part 4, in the next video.